using, got it, the technology that we've been using. And CLIL, in my context, is a Model United Nations credit-bearing class that builds political efficacy and communicative competence. And it's project-based and problem-based learning. And with a simulation, it can be done in a classroom or with other classes, universities or high schools domestically or internationally. And I just came back from a conference in New York 2 weeks ago, and it was the first in-person conference since 2020, but there were over 3,000 students from 141 different countries that participated. And looking back, when I started Model United Nations in 1990, there was no technology other than a video camera, fax machine, and we had word processors. Okay, so what are Model United Nations simulations? Okay, let's see if I can get this to go here. Sorry, I've got to, I don't know how to get this to go. Maybe I can.
So what is MUN anyway? Model United Nations, or MUN for short, is a simulation of the real-life UN, United Nations. You take the place of a delegate.
Oh, I can't seem to get my to go here. Okay. Can you hear the sound if you can't see anything? Could you hear this? Oh.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear. Model United Nations, or MUN for short, is a simulation of the real-life UN, United Nations. You take the place of a delegate of a country or an international organization.
Oh,
The
I
aim
think
of
I
the
can get it
council-
now. Sorry. Okay. Oh.
So what is MUN anyway? Model United Nations, or MUN for short, is a simulation of the real-life UN, United Nations. You take the place of a delegate of a country or an international organization. The aim of the council is to find a solution to the problems you'll be given as a topic before your conference. Just like in the real UN, you'll have the chance to draft resolutions and find a lasting solution to some important issues today, like climate change, the refugee crisis, and more. The aim of the United Nations in real life is to prevent conflicts and promote international cooperation. It's a forum for countries to express their views and make decisions together. To do this, there are numerous organs in the UN, such as the General Assembly, the Economic and Social Council, the Security Council, the International Court of Justice, and many more. In MUN, you'll get a chance to try to be a part of this. Resolutions are at the heart of MUN. They are a set of rules and guidelines that countries in the world generally follow about a whole range of things, including human rights, carbon emissions, and war. In real life, these are drafted and debated throughout weeks and months, and they require input from a lot of people, like member states, experts, and even NGOs. MUN is all about cooperation, not competition. It's not a race to beat other people. It's about how well you can work together and overcome your differences in opinions. As a delegate of a country, you'll have to play your part by sticking to your foreign policies, but also knowing when you need to compromise with others for the better good.
Okay. So Model United Nations, due to the COVID pandemic, became technology dependent in 2020. And before that, it became technology enhanced. And like I mentioned, from now on, some of the conferences are starting to be face-to-face, but others will continue online from our learning. So technology is a combination of both synchronous and asynchronous learning that we found has really increased the quality and quantity of interaction between students, instructors, and content, as students in the preparation process and simulation need to become more active learners, participants, and contributors. And so this presentation will describe the 4 separate learning phases in Model United Nations simulations in terms of the technology that we used. So the 4 phases: the initial preparation, pre-event priming, concurrent event, and then the debriefing. And in the initial preparation stage, students are learning about the country that they get assigned, their region, what the agenda is. So maybe they're in UNICEF, but they're looking at maternal health, or so that every Model United Nations has a committee as well as an agenda. And they also look at their country policy. So Model United Nations is not about their opinions. They're actually simulating the country that they are representing. In the initial preparation, they have to learn how to write position papers, the position on their country, on the agenda. They have to learn how to develop policy, speech writing, resolution writing, and amendment writing, and each one has its own genre. And to do this online, we used Zoom, but otherwise in person, it's in the classroom, and online or in person, we use Google Docs, Google Classroom. We use Model United Nations websites that provide information on the how-tos for the conference, and students have to do internet researching. And outside of class is the asynchronous learning, and most of the learning is actually happening outside of class, where students are doing their own research and writing and interacting on email. My students are Japanese, so a lot of them are using online translator, and especially if their countries don't have so many documents in English, they're having to do a lot of the translation. So for example, we represented Cuba last year. A lot of the documents were in Spanish that the students wanted, so they put them through a translator to be able to get a better understanding of countries' positions and policies. Students also work on Messenger and like. There's just an example of Google Classroom in our classes. It's great because we can archive and students can go back. We have a common place. It's the same as a Dropbox. So every Model UN, of course, has online conference materials, and there's a website that we have access to. So for position paper writing, procedure, and every Model United Nations, there's a background guide that explains the issue that the students need to research. And actually, this is written just before the conference, so it's probably the most up-to-date data and research that students will be able to find. And that's the general research. It's not about their country, but just generally on the topics. This is an example of our classroom. And students working together. So this is like hybrid. I think one of the students was actually doing study abroad in Singapore, and she attended our classes online. And everybody, of course, has laptops in the classes and teaching how to write. And whether it's online or offline, we're using the Google Classroom and PowerPoint technology. Oh, no. Okay, and Dropbox and again, Google Classroom are really great because you can archive classroom materials. They can look at policies. They can look at speeches that were written by their seniors in past years. Also, they can read position papers as they struggle to write. They've got models that they can look at. And on my left is an example of a position paper. And what's really great is we're able to give feedback. The students all have peer mentors. The peer mentors are able to give feedback. So we're always able to go in and check and see how people are doing and give feedback. And you can see that for our students, they give about 5 submissions of their writing. And everything gets dropped into boxes. So everybody's able to see there's lots of transparency and lots of support for their work. So that increases the students' agency when they're getting a lot of feedback. And then once the documents, there's a deadline for the position papers, then they get submitted to the organization and they're open for everyone in the world to see for a while. And this was just an example when we were in Germany in 2019. We submitted after students did 5 drafts, but a lot of universities go up to 12 drafts. We have less time. And then the students make action plans. Again, because of technology, Google Docs were able to give lots of support. And
So it's organized by Poland.
Students are always working with online technology. And you can see they're negotiating here online, but it looks very different than the face-to-face. Yeah, but they're still doing the same thing as you saw in the last video clip. And then students write speeches. Some of the speeches are spontaneous, but others they draft, and they draft sound bites. So all good. And then in the classes also on the right-hand side, we're able to give feedback almost instantly. So a speech is given, everybody gives feedback to the person online. We've got feedback forms. So it's really a great thing. We also use, we have a Facebook group where students are, it's our community center, I guess, where students are always writing notes to each other and letting them know how they're doing. So that's really great. Okay, so there's the first phase, the preparation. They're learning how to write, writing all their documents. They're learning about their country. They're doing the research. The second phase is how to run the meetings. And we use Zoom and Gatherly, another platform. So Gatherly, everybody gets an icon in one space and you can move very freely. Whereas Zoom, you have to leave the room and go to another room, and it takes a lot more time. So we've used both for conferences and in our classes. But basically, the pre-event priming phase is learning how to run the meeting. How does the meeting flow? So. So we do mock conferences.
Before moving into the formal session, let me explain you about the KCUFS and MEN hub that we'll be using during this session. So from the link that is shown on the board and also the screen, https://timura.com/KCUFSmen, you can access to the hub that we will be using. On this hub, you can access to the speakers list, the session forms, including working paper template and amendment form, working papers that were submitted to the dais, and you can have the access to draft resolution that are there.
Okay, and then students get a chance to practice their speech making.
Colandi, do you have 2 minutes? Thank you, Honorable
So
Chair
this is a
and
class.
delegates. I'm here to represent the Republic of Poland, and we would like to propose to prioritize Agenda 2 on the topic of enhancing economic competitiveness through global access. The situation of poverty has been improved over the past decades for over 20%.
Okay, and then they write action plans together in groups,
There used to be a lot of options for everything.
and they're using Google Docs. They're writing one together. Okay, and you can see, thanks to technology, things are color coded. They put things in, they amend or change what they've done. So Google Docs is fantastic.
Just like and
Okay. Oh,
Holding training sessions and
they're putting their ideas in, they're talking it through, and then the expert is giving advice.
Certain topics that you're discussing, and the working group they're talking about specifically is right over there. You have similar themes concerning natural disasters. So my recommendation to you, especially considering that your working group as of now is very short. So yes, again, please consider initiating.
Okay, giving feedback. Okay, social messaging. Okay, and this is the actual conference. And again, online, we use Zoom and Gatherly, or it's face-to-face, and there's a conference website, and there are Google Docs, and every conference has a hub where documents can all be uploaded. And conferences, for example, we held one in 2016 at our university that was for 4 days. I just got back from New York. It was 5 days. So conferences could be a one-day conference or longer. It just depends. This is a conference actually in Xi'an in China. It's face-to-face. Negotiating. This is what it looks like online. And you can see the little green circles on the right-hand side. Those show how many people are in working groups. And then if you push the circle, you'll get this kind of a group. You'll be able to see who's in the circle talking and writing their papers, but people can move easily from group to group. Okay, and they're writing their papers together on Google Docs. Okay, and this is, I guess, speech making at the real event. This is our students, Japanese students.
The Islamic Republic of Iran appreciates this opportunity to discuss Agenda 2 on the topic of improving coordination and preventing and combating violence struggling with you today. Iran is also inspired by the enthusiasm that this committee has shown so far in tackling this issue. 85% of 25.3 million refugees in the world is currently hosted by developing countries. The number is increasingly growing. So is 100%.
Oh, okay. And then this is an example of voting online, like voting forms. And this has really, with the voting forms, it's really cut a lot of time because if you don't have voting forms, then you're voting counting hands. And in some of the committees, there are, like the General Assembly can have 190 placards going up, and the counting process takes a long time. Whereas the online voting is very, very fast. It's just instantaneous, so, and more accurate. Oh. Okay, and then the last part of the conference is the post-event debriefing and getting the final outcome documents. And again, the debriefing we've done on Zoom during the pandemic or face-to-face. And what's great is that you got the archives. And we have a debriefing. We actually had our New York debriefing this morning from the conference I came back from, but we've got debriefing sessions that everybody talks about. So they talk about their learning. They'll also maybe write a paper. And on the conference websites, you can get all of the resolutions and look at them. And so this is an example of a resolution that was done in the General Assembly on the elimination of the weapons of mass destruction. So in Model United Nations, the outcome documents are exactly like, they look like the real UN. And then conference evaluation forms, students writing on social media. So what I've shown you are basically the 4 phases. There's a lot of technology that we're using, and more, of course, is being developed. Like 3 years ago, I'd never heard of Zoom or Gatherly. You know, years ago too, there was no Google Classroom, but it's really helped. Of course, there are challenges with technology, Dropbox memory. The thing that I don't like, Classroom, affect is hard. There's no reaction icons like you have on Facebook or other platforms. Learning how to use the technology can take time. And with technology, there's just so much information for the students to process. So faculty really have a role. Also, there's overuse of technology, we found. And of course, technical issues. Luckily, I don't have any right now, but sometimes the technical issues, if you have an online conference and there's people coming from all over, it's just terrible. And of course, with the time zones. So we had the New York conference was online last year, and my students, we started at 10 in the morning. We had to stay up all night until 7 or 8 in the morning at the conference. So our night and days were different. So of course it's cheaper, but we're happy that we can be back face to face for some things. If you can have regional conferences where there's not such a big time gap, that's a great thing. But the benefits of technology over the years have been more transparency. We see more negotiating with students, more communication, more motivation, and we have a stronger community because we've got a lot of platforms that we're interacting on. Also, we have better information access, and we have the archives that everybody can have access to. And it's easy to combine classes too on different campuses online. So we're able to, like we've got German partners that we meet with them online. And also it's easy to meet with embassies and have briefings online. So time-wise, it's great. And just to end, this is I'm a co-editor of this book. It's got a lot of the technology. There's technology chapters that have been written by different authors. So it's an edited edition, and yeah, and it just came out, so it's the newest. So thank you very much. If you've got questions, I'd be happy to answer. I've got about 4 minutes left here. Oh, any questions? Do any of you do Model UN?
I haven't done Model UN, but there's a Model UN at our school. They have a club in the
Okay.
high
Oh,
school.
it's a club. Great, great,
Yeah,
fantastic.
don't-
Yeah,
I don't know much about it, but it
Yeah.
seems like they have a lot of fun, which is cool.
Yes,
And I'd
yeah.
like to learn
And
more
There's
about
a lot
their.
of learning. Yeah. Yeah. And there's different ways you can do it in the classroom. Like there are kits with simulations. Yeah, I've pushed for the classroom to bring it in the curriculum. So I taught in a high school for over 20 years and we put it in the curriculum. And then when I got to the university in Japan, nobody was doing it. So I've worked really hard to get it in the curriculum, and now more universities in Japan have, put it in the curriculum too. So it's a really, really great thing. Yeah. But today I just wanted to show kind of the technology side of things, but there's a lot. And there's a lot of learning and development, and yeah, there's nothing like it to develop students' communicative skills and also knowledge of the world. Okay. Any comments or anything? Oh, somebody's got this chat thing here. Oh, okay. Okay, so take care, everybody. You guys have probably had a really long day today
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. It was great.
with talks
Very
and
interesting.
things. Okay, take care.
Yeah, you too.
I don't know if it's, you can see, sun's going down here in Japan.
Oh yeah, I'm in Korea, so we're same time.
Oh, you're the same. Oh, that's lovely. Where are you?
In Seoul.
In Seoul. Okay, that's great. Well, we hope, so you've opened, right? Tourists,
Yeah,
can they go now?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think
Okay,
tourists
great.
are able to come in.
That's great. That's great. Because Japan is still closed.
Yeah,
So
I was
we-
thinking of coming
we-
over,
right.
but
Yeah, we can go out, but we can't, no one can come in yet. So
yeah,
we're just waiting. Yeah.
yeah, I miss it.
Okay. Yeah, totally. Okay, everybody, take care. And if you're
Thank
interested
you.
in Model UN, just give me write to me. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Good night.